Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and in this video we're going to talk about team building. Again, this is one of the videos that I mentioned before about the team building series. So yeah, we're going to start with the DPS units of the yellow element. As I mentioned before, I'm going to split them by element just to make it easier, and not have a 1.5 hour long video, something like that. So yeah, we're going to start with this kind of units. It's not going to be mono yellow teams. It's just going to be like the DPS units of that element and then the kind of supports they want to run, which kind of team compositions you can run with them, and then I will provide a couple of examples for each unit. I would say we can start with Yirang. I'm not going to talk about Eden in this video. If you're interested about him, go and watch the first video of this team building that I released like a couple of days ago, because in that video I talked about him. So yeah, I would say that's enough. If you feel like I should go in more detail for about him because I missed something in my previous video, let me know and I might add him in one of the following ones. We'll see. But for now we will start with Yirang, and as usual, we can kind of think about the points that I mentioned in the first video, and that is, what is the main source of our damage? And for Yirang, let me just pull her up quickly. For Yirang, our main source of damage is going to be the active skill, followed by the special move. By the active skill, the Petal Torrent is going to be where most of our damage is coming from. Also, the other active skill is good if she can actually hit it, because it generates some areas randomly around the map, and if it's in the center of the map and then Yirang will pull them all together, then that skill will deal a lot of damage. Otherwise, kind of negligible, I'd say. So yeah, for sure she's not a basic attack unit, so we don't have to focus on those kind of things, and she can chain the special moves well enough even if we don't go too ham on attack speed. She's going to run the L set anyway because we don't really have any better options. Rafflesia could be a good option on her if we really want to, but yeah, I think L is going to be the most solid set for her, just due to how easy it is for her to not get hit, due to her crowd controls that are absolutely insane and will prevent the enemies from actually going into your team. So yeah, that's the first point. She scales off of attack, so we care about attack buffs here and there. We don't really care about crits because she's a mage, so she's already getting a lot of crit rate and crit damage from the subnodes. Obviously, crit damage never hurts, but yeah, not too important. Swiftness is nice to keep chaining the special move if your swiftness is more on the lower end, like if you're in the 50s, 70s, maybe you want more swiftness. If you have around 100 already, you might not need as much. Attack speed, again, as I mentioned, not too important, but whatever. For Pierce, she doesn't have Pierce in her kit, she only has it in Revolution for the Petal Torrent and nothing else. Obviously she has special move Pierce because she's a mage, but other than those two things she doesn't, so any shred on the enemy resistances or any Pierce that you can give her will be appreciated. And for this I will say, well, first I will mention a team that you can normally run on her because you don't really have competition for these kind of units, and they would be Evan, Bam, and then you go with a unit like, where are you, Wangnan as a sub DPS in this case if we are building Yirang for damage, but this team also works for Wangnan once we talk about him. But yeah, and then for the front line I would say Shibisu, Tank Hats, let's go for Tank Hats, are both really good. I wouldn't go for Asensio just because this guy is going to shred physical resistance, we don't care about it, while Tank Hats shreds defense, and Shibisu magic resistance and defense as well. So yeah, those two are good options, and in this element there is not much else. Again, this is the mono yellow team, but it's also a team you will likely run even when you have a lot of resources, because these are units that are not really contested or needed by other teams. So you can easily create a team and it will work just fine. If we are in a single stage, we really want to maximize the damage. I will say we can replace some of these units. First, some replacement just to stay in this element would be, we could remove Wangnan. If you're Yirang, you can already deal a lot of damage already by yourself. And we can put a Shibisu, for example. Or maybe you don't have a Wangnan Ja build, which is likely. You might have a compressed rack. You can also use compressed rack, no problem. At which point, Asensio could become a bit more useful than before, but I would still stick to Hats or Shibisu, I would say. Now, if we don't have to strictly follow a yellow team, we have a new best in slot support for her, but only a Revolution 5, which is Albilda. If she's not Revolution 5, it won't matter as much, but Revolution 4 already massive. Before then, just a really good support, but nothing that is really going to be too important for Yirang. Other units, no surprise there. Garam, amazing unit. Is going to boost her special move damage, which is not the biggest portion of her kit, but they're still really, really good. It loses a bit of value because you already have a 60% from the Revolution subnodes, so this additional 75% is not going to be as impactful. But yeah, still pretty good. And then other two options could be still like a Wangnan Ja if you want an additional sub DPS, or I don't think you will need it in this kind of team. There is already so much buffing that is insane. Or you can go for, why can I never find him? Okay, Tank Hats as the frontline is an okay tank also in this scenario, no problem. Then for the last unit, you can really do whatever you want. I don't think you need more energy, reason why I didn't put a Nak that you can then use in another team, but she's totally viable actually. She will be extremely good to have her spam the skills, but not that important in this team. I'd rather use her in another one. We could have, as an example, an array, but I already mentioned that she already gets enough energy from this unit alone, I'd say, so you don't really need too much. If you feel like you're not ulting, like you cannot keep all the enemies stuck in the middle, then sure, go ahead with an array, or you might even do something like a bomb in the front line here. That is not usually what I recommend, but since you have to keep Albilda in the same row and in a position that she links to Yirang, this position is probably the best one for bomb. You can definitely do it. It's not going to be crazy good, but viable. So yeah, these kind of compositions will all work. And yeah, if Albilda is not Revolution 5, which I'm guessing it's the case for most people, then you can definitely also try to put Bam here, that is going to provide energy to Garam and to Yirang. You might even put Yirang in the front line, add Evan here if you want to, or here, up to you. And then maybe something like this. All depends which kind of special move you want to prioritize. Could also be feasible this way. But this again is really, really yellow, but it's fine. Perfectly doable. There could be even an option, again with Albilda, but I'm going to mention it in a second. You might even run the yellow team like this. Totally fine. Like there are a lot of variations that you can do, but I hope you are getting what the core of the team is. You can also run a regular Leroro here for the additional peers. Definitely viable, and there are no issues here. You could run instead of Evan a Anniversary Yihwa, also totally possible and pretty solid. The unfortunate thing is that this guy is a bit squishy, so he's going to waste her passives, but shouldn't be a big deal as soon as Yirang starts chaining the special moves. You might even get away without an actual tank, and you can run there again, an array just to improve the attack of Yirang and just have her chain special moves. That's also a possibility. So you see, these are all possible team comps you can run based on what you can spare from other teams. I hope this was enough for Yirang. Let me know if you have any doubts in the comments down below. Then on to the next one, and this is going to be a lot quicker, I will say, because it's Yihwa. And Yihwa is not really a DPS we should take into consideration right now, from my point of view. But if you're still early on in the game, obviously you have to use her and you can use her. So the usual Bam, Evan, Yihwa, and I will try to put together a composition you could run early on. And the usual tank, that can be this guy. For the last slot, really anything will work. Either another sub DPS, which is recommended for her to deal more damage, and that could be Compress Rack, though there is no grouping in this team, so might not be the best option. You could run Asensio, you could run Eden, whatever you want. Yirang as well is also an option. Or you could run a support like Shibisu that will nerf the enemy resistances so that she can deal more damage and try to mitigate her lack of damage this way. You can run Legro as we saw before. All super valid options. I will say you don't really use her with other units that we have nowadays, especially like Anak. Garam could still be valuable in this team. But this is not really, like with Garam is okay, but Anak is not that useful because she will have enough energy anyway and she's stuck in the special move animation. She cannot like cast another one before that the first one it's over. So you cannot really do a lot. Like you will have a lot of, like you will have too much energy in this kind of composition. You don't need Anak. So you are better off just boosting her damage some other way. Nare, in this case, she's also providing a lot of energy. From my point of view, less than Anak, but she's also shredding a single target defense and resistances, which is helpful, and also providing her an attack buff. So this can work. Not too crazy. I'm not too fond of this kind of team, but can work, especially if they're all ranged and the enemy will crash on you. So I'd rather run, again, a frontline unit like Dankats. I'm not going to try and make a team with non-yellow units because this unit is going to be primarily run in a mono-yellow team early on, or at the very least a Evan, Bam, Yihwa team, and then the other two, up to you, really doesn't matter. If you want to hybrid it with the purple team somehow, you can do something like this, even though it's kind of meh, but you can do it. And yeah, really whatever. The important thing are these 3 units and also the positioning. I would keep it something like this. Always keep Bam and Evan together, and I would rather have Bam in this position so that he can give energy to Yihwa as well. That's kind of the idea. Not going to talk more about Yihwa. Next unit I will say Wangnan Ja, and this guy has the mono yellow team that's identical to what I mentioned before. So we have Yirang. In this case, she doesn't need to be invested. Like she just needs to survive. So give her resistances. She will group enemies, and then your Wangnan Ja will kill them. And this is the usual composition that you would normally run, I would say. But Wangnan Ja has a lot more potential than Yihwa, so we can also optimize the teams and try to have him deal more damage some other way. Most of his damage is coming from the special move, and he can chain it fairly easily. So we can resort to a team like where are you, Anak? Why are the new units always below? Damn it, I have to scroll so much. Okay, Anak. Then obviously Garam will also buff him a lot. Nare will also be super good. And with this team, it will just spam a lot of special moves and destroy the enemies. So yeah, pretty solid, I would say. But obviously you don't have to use an array necessarily. You can use other units without a problem, like Anniversary War Revolution 5 if you ever, that's a no-brainer. You might even use Yellowy, though I don't recommend it because this guy already has a lot of crit rate increase from the active skills, but the crit damage is not bad. And this guy has a crit hit guaranteed on the special move. So crit damage could be okay, attack speed, yeah, but not too important. So that's also one kind of team that you can run. I would always pair him with Yirang, just because the grouping makes him so much better. So yeah. Can work without her, but I wouldn't bother. Let's put it that way. Then for the next unit, I would say we can have a look at Compressed Rock. This guy, mono yellow team, is also going to be similar, but somewhat different. In this case, you can run an Asensio just for the physical resistance shred, though he already has a lot of pierce, but whatever, you can definitely do it. Or the usual Tankat or Shibisu. For now, just to differentiate it a bit, just put Asensio in there. For him, you don't need Yirang, like he is better than a Wangnan if there is no grouping, because his special move is not like a circle, but it's more of a rectangle that will go to the end of the battlefield, so you can hit more enemies compared to Wangnan. So Yirang is not needed, but definitely good to have. Then the other two units, usual Bam Evan. I would say here Data Work will work as well. He also has a shred, though it's only 20%. But Asensio, if he's not duped up, is really bad. Otherwise, usual Tankats, you will be fine. And instead of Yirang, you can run really whatever you want. You can run a Shibisu. You can run an Yihwa Revolution 5 for the defense shred, if you really want to. But yeah, that's kind of the team comps you can run in the mono yellow. But if you look at other teams, this guy is focused heavily on the special move. So to no surprise, we have the usual Anak. Then we can go ahead with Garam. Yihwa if you ever, otherwise Nare is fine. You could even go with Albelda with him. Will work perfectly okay. He will rely a lot of crit hits. He has a lot of buffs that are based on whether or not he's critting on the enemy. So a Yellowy in this case is also a really good pick. And yeah, I think this kind of team will work just fine. I don't know why it's kind of frozen here. Okay, perfect. It unlocked itself. So yeah, for him, attack speed is important, swiftness is important, crit is definitely a good stat to have, as I mentioned. And yeah, he already has a lot of pierce in his kit, so we don't care as much about debuffing the enemies. But still, this team is providing a lot of attack buffs, is providing a lot of attack speed, a lot of crit rate and crit damage. Overall, with this kind of team, this guy can really shine. And yeah, that's more or less it, I would say. As you see, the reason why I'm doing two kind of teams, the first one being more mono yellowish, is because these units are highly contested. As you can see, I'm using them in every single team basically. They can work on a lot of units. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you have to do the best possible team every time, you're running out of units, so you will have to compromise. Just keep in mind what every unit is good at. And so far, we saw Yirang good with special move, more with active skills and then special move. The other three units we had a look at, Yihwa, Compressed Rock, and Wangnan. All three of them are heavily relying on the special move to deal damage. Compressed Rock can also deal a lot of damage with basic attacks, and I normally run it with Sundance, but that will all depend on which kind of team you can put together. So yeah, keep that in mind. Just analyze what every unit needs and then tweak the supports based on their needs. You don't have to worry too much about the additional stats that you get if you have units of certain elements. Is not too crucial. It's not that big of a buff. You don't have to care that much about them. Just think about the synergy of every single unit. Here, as an example, we could also run Red Mask Warrior. Totally viable, no problem. You could run her instead of Albelda, and then run also Yellowy, something like this. Maybe like this, because if Yellowy dies, we don't give a shit. Something like this. So yeah, these are all viable options. They will work fine, super good. So yeah, up to you to try and mix and match based on what type of damage your unit is dealing, what they're basing their damage off, like what is the most important part of their kits, and then build supports based on that. I would say now we are off to the last unit that I wanted to mention here, and that is going to be Asensio. He's not really a DPS, I'd say, but if you have him Revolution 5, sure, it deals damage. Though he's a bit tricky, because you cannot really chain the special moves that well. It will have a lot of energy most of the times, but you cannot cast it. Like, you can only cast it once every 7 seconds, and during the cast time, is pretty vulnerable. But you have units to mitigate that. So yeah. If we go, again, full yellow, you know the drill. We always go Bam Evan, super solid. Then we can add a compress rack, because at least compress rack deals physical damage, is basically the only one other than data work, but whatever. And if we really talk about like tank hats or Shibisu, yeah, sure, they also deal physical damage, but not in an amount that will matter. So this guy could be a good sub DPS to have. And for the last slot, if you want to stay in yellow, Shibisu could be good. Eden, just because Eden is always good. Tank hats, just to have an additional frontline unit, could also be okay. But yeah, I would, in this scenario, go ahead and move to another element. And here you can run a few different units. You could run, for example, an Albelda. In this position, we'll link to him, so that would be good. You can run a Yellowy, though in this case, particularly, she will link to Compress Rack, because this guy really doesn't have a lot of attack, and warriors do not get attack in the subnodes. So, to be fair, this guy is an SSR. If you don't really fully invest in his attack subnode, and you put this guy in the highest link, then he will have more attack, so might still be okay. Kind of up to you, I will say. Or you can also run Red Mask Warrior, that will buff both Compress Rack and Asensio. Or you might even run both, perfectly fine. Up to you, do whatever you want. You might even do something like this. This is probably what I would kind of run in a primarily yellow team. If we want to go for potentially one of the best teams for him, or a team you could run him in, I would just replace Evan and Bam with 2 other units. One of them could easily be Yellowy, that we were mentioning before, and the last one, just the Yihwa for survivability, and just help him when he has the invincibility down or the mortality down. So yeah, something like this could work. I don't see many problems with it. So yeah, I would say that's pretty much it also for Asensio. Well, I didn't really talk too deeply into what each unit is good at and the different points that I mentioned for Yirang. But yeah, you kind of get the idea. I already mentioned them briefly for the other units. For Asensio, most of his damage will come from the active skills. He really has a good one, I would say. The damage from his Flying Fish is not going to be as important. It's too random, it's too small. But the Molino de Viento is pretty nice. Not important. Aqua Slash will be most of his damage, I would say. And having a Revolution 5 Albelda I know is not in many people's roster, but will definitely help out. So that's a good pair. And yeah, that's more or less it. It doesn't really have a lot of in his kit, but it deals some nice damage. I wouldn't recommend running him as the solo DPS, especially at high deficit. He won't deal enough damage. So you're better off just using him as a frontline unit and nothing more. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if I should structure it in a different way before I record the videos for the other elements. I will wait for some feedbacks to appear in the comments down below. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.